Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ohio's Electric Cooperative Summer Conference. And now, please welcome to the stage OREC Board Chairman, Roger Rank.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Roger Rank. I am a trustee for Midwest Electric, and I've been elected as the chairman of the board of directors for OREC down here at Columbus. So this is going to be my first conference in serving you guys as president, and it is an honor to represent the Ohio Electric Cooperatives in this role. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to Mitch Headley, our past chairman, immediate past chairman, for his outstanding service, leadership, and dedication to Ohio's electric cooperatives. Please join me in recognizing Mitch for his contributions and his commitment to Ohio's electric cooperatives. Mitch, where are you at? Mitch, back in the corner. On behalf of the OREC Board of Directors, I would like to welcome you to this 2026 Summer Conference. This conference provides a valuable opportunity for the cooperative trustees, CEOs, and staff to come together and learn and share ideas and strengthen the relationships that help to make our cooperative network successful. Our industry continues to face challenges and opportunities unlike we have ever seen in the past. From reliability and cybersecurity to economic development and emerging generation technologies, the decisions that we make today will help to shape the future of our communities that we serve tomorrow. I would also like to thank our sponsors for their continued partnership and support. They are what help make conferences like this possible, and it also allows us to bring great educational programming to Ohio's cooperative leaders. So please join me in thanking our sponsors. And next, I want to thank OEC and Buckeye Power staff for their hard work and planning for the execution of this conference. I would especially like to thank our CEO, Craig Grooms, for his leadership and unwavering commitment to Ohio's electric cooperatives, along with his team of Doug, Bill, Kurt, Tom, Kevin, and Ben, and the entire Buckeye and OEC team. The strength of our organization is a direct reflection of the talented people that we have and that work every day for the benefit of our members and our communities. Please join me in thanking the OEC and Buckeye Power staff. And finally, I want to thank all of you for being here. You know, serving as a cooperative trustee is both a privilege and a great responsibility. It requires commitment, leadership, and a willingness to make decisions that will benefit your members not only today, but for the generations to come. Your attendance at this conference demonstrates that commitment that you have to continuous learning and effective governance. As is often said, we are stronger when we work together. The spirit of cooperation remains one of our greatest strengths, and it continues to be the thing that sets cooperatives apart. So once again, I'd like to welcome you to this 2026 conference. At this time, I'll ask Vice Chairman of OREC, Betty Martin, to come for our invocation.
Thank you, Roger. If you're able to stand, would you please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to meet, network, and learn from fellow trustees, keeping our members' best interests in mind. We as a nation are blessed beyond belief. Thank you for always being there for us. We ask that you watch over everyone working in our systems and bring each and every one home safely at the end of the day. We also ask that you please be with our service personnel, both here and abroad, and be with our country and our president at this time. All this we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Please welcome to the stage President of Mangan Consulting, Mr. Pat Mangan, and President and CEO of Federated Energy Services Cooperative Incorporated, Mr. Ed VanHoose.
window now. Okay.
Sounds great.
Great.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Good to be back in Ohio. I'm certainly honored to be here. And Ed, thank you for joining me on stage.
Absolutely.
You're a very brave man.
Oh.
Well, so we're here to talk about appraisal and compensation, a process critical to our program, to our CEOs, to our leadership, and to co-ops across the country, of course. I do want to say, I'm Pat Mangan, retired from NRECA. I've seen many of you in the classroom, and Ed has been in the co-op program for, I'm going to say, decades.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Quite a while.
delighted to have you here.
Yeah.
He is the CEO of North Central Electric Co-op in Attica, Ohio, as well as Lorraine Medina in Spencer, Ohio.
Yep.
So shared services arrangement.
Yes, it's a little bit different than the traditional shared services arrangement. You hear about them across the country, and even some in Ohio, where you might share one or two things, right? You might have shared IT services or HR or even a CEO. That happens pretty frequently. FESCO is actually sharing everything. So it's a separate management cooperative. And as a part of that, anything that can be shared and any economies of scale that can be brought to bear are brought to bear. So we don't just share CEO, we share all management, all HR, all IT, any inner office function of any kind. Those are all shared employees. And by doing so, we're able to take our dollars and stretch them a little further.
Very good, very good. We're seeing that model a couple of different places around the country, and again, co-ops have a way of, Scott Lucale, one of our instructors, likes to say, co-ops have figured out 932 ways to do the same thing.
Yep.
You're all providing electricity, but you're all doing it a little different, and that's cool. That's part of the beauty of the program. So Ed, we're talking about appraisal and comp, and I want to share with our audience two things. One, we want to take your questions throughout the session. If you're a person who raises their hand, we'll try to see you. We got a light in our eyes, but just go ahead and stand. That way we can kind of see where you are. But we encourage you to do that because we got questions that we can talk about that we've worked on in advance. But we want to know what's on your mind. What questions do you have? And also, Ed and I are going to be talking about one way to do appraisal and compensation. Of course, there are many, and this is just one of them. So with that, again, please, we've got microphone runners. Melissa, is it? Melinda, I apologize, and Ryan is over on the other side. They'll run and get to you as quick as they can. So again, we encourage you to ask your questions. We want this to be about what's on your minds. So Ed, why don't we start with an overview of your appraisal and comp process that you're using today?
Sure. So it actually is just about to begin again for this year. So
'Tis the season.
right, it is that season. Well, let me back up a little bit. It starts in our strategic alignment process. I say alignment because traditional strategic planning is sort of a top-down approach. Strategic alignment that we do really takes staff, employees, and board and aligns the direction of the cooperative together. Then we get a direction out of that. And those priorities that come out of that become my goals. So each of those priorities has a set of different factors underneath it that we use to develop goals for how my evaluation is then framed. So right now there's 5 of them, and each of those will become a topic within my evaluation that becomes formalized later in the year. Typically, we start in August, which is what's about to happen right now, and I generate a document based upon those strategic priorities and tell the board the progress that has been made this past year. Now, those priorities may shift because we'll do a different strategic alignment session, and so therefore the evaluation could shift because they may be different topics, or they could remain the same. And I can tell you, for all co-ops out there, there are 3 that generally remain the same. Safety is number 1 for all of us, so What are we doing as a cooperative, and what am I doing to help promote safety? Reliability, obviously, this is another one. And then you can say rates, you can say costs, you could say whatever, but something about the money portion of the business. Then after that, we'll have some that shift pretty regularly. And like I said, right now I have 5 of those. There have been years when there's been 7. Typically that's on the high end, because if you're trying to do too many things at once, it's not going to be very effective. But we take those and then jointly agree upon the direction the cooperative is going to go as a high-level goal from the board, or in my case, boards, and then how those are accomplished is what I'm reporting back. And again, it's not we're completing this absolutely in that year, but progress and how that has been occurring. And then once we get down a certain point, we'll redo those and come up with different goals. And that could be 2 years, 3 years, could stretch to 4 years. And we can do another one of those sessions, come up with different agreed upon goals, a direction for how the cooperative is going to go. And then I and my staff figure out how we're going to move toward that goal. And then that becomes the new way in which I am evaluated on an annual basis.
I love the fact that it's written down and it's a collaborative process. Yes. Your input, the board's input, and through that we come up with the priorities. And as I agree with you, 7 priorities. I had a friend that used to say that's an oxymoron. You can't have 7 priorities. You can have 3 or 5, and that's a little more reasonable. Mm-hmm. But Ed, before we start talking about appraisal and comp, could you take a moment just to kind of describe the structure of FESCO and the co-ops that you lead?
Sure. So what's really interesting is they are very different demographically. So North Central is pretty rural. Density is low. Lorraine Medina is rural, but pretty close to Cleveland, and we have portions that have Cleveland bedroom communities. So really dense cooperative. From a landmass perspective, North Central is very large. From a landmass perspective, Lorraine Medina is kind of small. Really, the Lorraine and Medina, a little bit of outskirts, but pretty small geographically. Demographically, though, much more diverse. So this brings some pretty big challenges on how we're going to have to manage and what we're going to do, particularly when we have shared strategic priorities. But the way that the Federation works is it's based upon meter count. That's how everything is billed on these shared services. So Lorraine Medina, being more dense, more meters, will pay per meter the same amount, but then it equals to be more. Or it comes out to be more. And so when you start looking at how you're sharing the services, it's really fair because it's per member, right? But when you look at who is putting more into the Federation from a financial perspective solely, that would be Lorraine Medina. It's still a huge benefit to LMRE. It still is, because there is a significant cost reduction for them for having North Central be part of it. Now, I always get asked the question, what happens in the future if another cooperative were to join, right? Well, then that would be recalculated again on a per meter basis. And that would be the new amount that each would end up paying for that. So the structure is fluid, could change depending on growth in a particular area. You could have, North Central, like I said, much more geography, much more opportunity for growth. You could have a lot more development there. And maybe that won't happen because people really like the rural setting and all that, and that's great. But it could, and if that were to occur, you could see the potential of shifting that cost structure because it's a per meter basis. Now, the Federation itself, FESCO, is another cooperative, and it's made up of a board of the board members from North Central and LMRE. So they get seats on the FESCO board based upon the number of members they have. And right now, because LMRE has more, they get 4 seats, and because North Central has slightly less, they get 3. Again, it's dynamic. It could change. If the member count changes at a particular cooperative, they might get more or they might get less. So that's how that functions. And this is important because my evaluation is done not just by the two individual boards, but it's overseen by that shared 7-person board. And so they're the ones who engage with the outside consultant that comes in and does this for that board.
Very good. So thank you for that, Ed. And so appraisal and comp is the subject. You understand the structure of the two, how the two co-ops come together. Ed, let's start off with just tell us about how feedback comes to you. What is your preference? What's your arrangement with the board? Does it come on a regular basis? Does it come on a real-time basis? Is it saved up to the end? What approach do you take?
Yeah, I don't believe in saving anything till the end. I think that my own leadership style is one where I give continuous feedback. And so my relationship with both boards is the same. I'm always looking for continuous feedback. We meet together regularly. I meet with the board chairs prior to every board meeting, and we sort of set the agenda and how that's going to work. During board meetings, there's continuous feedback. I get texts and calls and emails just like every other CEO. So I'm always looking for that type of feedback from all members of my board at any time. The evaluation process is just the eventuality that comes out of that. So if I get to the evaluation process and I'm surprised about something on that, that means there's a communication breakdown. I should really never be surprised. I should kind of know how I'm doing on each of those priorities. And I think that's not just a goal for me that I should know that. I would think that any board would want to have that relationship too and make sure, am I not hearing me? Okay, there's an issue. Okay. You guys not hearing me okay with this? Is this better? All right. Sorry. So I think that any board should be able to have that same expectation that their CEO would know exactly what it is that they're thinking on their evaluation on an ongoing basis. Yeah.
I agree, Ed, and I, first of all, questions, please.
We're down one mic though. So.
We are, okay, so we're going to be a little bit shorthanded. Oh, we do have a question.
Yeah.
Terrific, thank you. Feedback's so important, and I talk to so many CEOs who say they don't get any or enough, and this is fuel to you. Was that a way to characterize it, feedback?
That's absolutely true. So I am making decisions on a daily basis. Now, there's a difference between feedback and crossing the line into management, right? So
certainly.
There are definite roles here, management and board. And in times, I will even come and I will present things that maybe cross the line a little bit. That's me being transparent and informative, right? But I'm always looking for the feedback from the people that I work for. And that is how I make sure I'm on the right track for them.
Terrific.
Okay, so I guess the question is, it sounds like you're adding another layer of management, and typically that wouldn't be considered improving the process unless you're bringing something specific to the whole process. So what would you say you're bringing that the old system did not possess already?
Do you mean with regards to FESCO and how that functions for each cooperative?
Correct.
Okay, so we don't add, we're actually lessening, because now there's not two CEOs, there's one. So it's not that I'm over a couple of other CEOs at each location, it's that I am over both simultaneously. Think of it in this perspective. If you have a cooperative that merges, right, they don't have two CEOs anymore, they have one. And that CEO will run multiple locations. In fact, many cooperatives have multiple locations throughout the whole United States. This is a kind of a normal thing. The larger you get, the more likely it is you maybe have outpost buildings or even a full-fledged second headquarters somewhere, those kind of things. It's very similar to that and how we run things. It's just the boards remain their separate identities, and the cooperatives remain with their original identities. So everything we do from a branding is still local. It's still North Central here, LMRE here. It's not FESCO ever to the members. They retain their cooperative, their ownership, their advocacy through their board, all still there. Now we're just sharing resources in the way of personnel.
Thanks for your question, and keep them coming. Oh, we got one over here. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, no. No, I'm just kidding.
Ed, that came out loud.
I would just like to add, the retiring trustee that I replaced gave me one piece of advice, and that was to remember the FESCO arrangement saves us a boatload of money.
It does.
Thanks, Nick. Again, keep the questions coming. We appreciate it. Ed, let's turn our attention to, again, this is one way to do it, but an evaluation form can have a rating scale, numbers, it can have comments. Which do you do and which do you prefer?
All right, so I want to remind everybody at this point, this is just what we do. I am not saying go back to your cooperative and change to what we do. So I'm going to speak about my preference and what we have agreed upon with my boards. You may have completely different things, and those are probably great for you. But I'm just sharing what we do, right?
Sounds good.
I do not like the number system. I find it to have no value whatsoever. What's the difference between a 3, 4, and 5? I have no clue. And also, some people will never give you a 5. It is not possible to obtain it because they say, well, no one can be perfect. Then why is it on the evaluation? So I do not care for the number system, so we don't really use it. We use that I meet expectations, I don't meet expectations, and occasionally maybe I exceed them. Occasionally, we'll see. But that's really what we're looking for there is, are we on the right track or are we not? What's really important to me, and I say it every year, are the comments that come along with it. What is your view on what I have given you? Because remember, I generate the first report. It's me reporting back to the board, hey, these are the goals that you have agreed upon with us. This is my progress on those goals. Do you agree with this? Do you not agree with this? And so, yeah, it takes the board a little longer to do my evaluation than it could be if there was just a survey and they're going, well, that's a 2, that's a 4, that's a 3. That would be very fast, but not very substantive. So I'm looking for feedback that I can use to determine how we're going to move forward into the future on an operational basis. And that can only occur if I'm getting good comments back from the board. And I can tell you, they take it seriously, and I get those comments every year. And we use those, and we talk about them, and we will adjust things mid-strategic priorities without even doing another alignment session because of some of those things that come through there. So it's really important to me to see that comment section.
Thanks for sharing that, Ed. And I can't tell you how many CEOs I've talked to who say, yeah, I really wish I got a little more feedback from my board. I get a slap on the back maybe, or keep up the good work. Right. But in my experience, CEOs are a different breed of person. They really want that feedback. They run on it. They're interested in improving everything that they're doing. And if you're a board that doesn't give that specific feedback, think about ways you could do that. I encourage you to do it because they need it. And particularly in this era of turnover at the CEO level, I think we still have across the country, we're still hovering around 40% of our CEOs are eligible to retire today. So that means new people are going to be coming in, and those new people are really going to need that specific feedback. So thanks, Ed. And so let me turn to, you mentioned that you use an outside consultant. Yeah. What does that person do? How is that person chosen?
So I know we're not the only one who does that. A lot of people, a lot of co-ops do that across the country. They take my initial report and turn it into something that can be digested easily by both boards in an electronic survey. So they're actually taking that, creating a portal for the board to go into. They can log in, and they can then give their feedback in that form so that way it's not all done paper. Now, if you wanted to do it paper, you could always just scan that and email to him, and he put it in for you. I know he doesn't like to do that, but it's possible. So, and we don't really have to do that. I think everybody's pretty comfortable with this at this point. But that's really his role. And then he will facilitate the meeting between me and the board later. So he creates that final report based upon the surveys that they give, and then he will come in and they will meet with me, the FESCO board by itself will meet with me. We will go over the results, look at what progress has been made, and then from there agree on what maybe next priorities might be. And then those results all get presented back to both individual boards.
Fair enough. Do I see a question out there, Ryan? No, good. Melinda, we're good? Please
I
ask.
can't see much of anything out there.
I can't really either.
Right there, maybe a
I just
little
know when I
bit.
see Ryan
See
sort
Greg.
of, we can see the front row. So, Ed, talk a little bit about the metrics that are used. There's so many metrics within electric co-ops, from reliability to member, I'm going to say member appreciation. That's the wrong word. Engagement. Yeah. So talk about the metrics you've chosen and how those are chosen and why and those sorts of things.
Yeah, so like I talked about earlier, that strategic alignment session is really, really important. That's where we get the broad priorities of what we're going to focus on. And many of you do some kind of strategic planning session. We do it at the G&T and statewide and all that. So this is not an unknown concept, just slightly different with the alignment wording. But when we do that, we're coming upon what those metrics are going to be. Now, the broad categories are where the board really has their input. That is to say, okay, we really want you to double down on member engagement this year. Or let's think about 7 years ago. We were doing an annual meeting, and we were having a lot of people come to this annual meeting because it was at a fair. And so we rent out the fairgrounds, and this story goes for both cooperatives, by the way. Same process was going on. At that annual meeting, we were having every lineman show up and help park cars, run bounce houses. We had a snake handler, for God's sake, one year. I remember that at Attica. So it was very interesting, all the different things at the fairground. It's pretty costly to do that, to have all the vendors come in, but really costly from an employee perspective, and the employees hated it. And they may not say they do, but I don't know of a single lineman that really wants to sit out there and park cars all day in the summertime, which is when ours is. So we're paying them overtime wages to do all of that. And then we go into the annual meeting itself. So we have the member appreciation stuff going on. Everybody's there. We're feeding them. Everybody's happy and having a great time. We go into the annual meeting building to hold the actual meeting. As I look around the room, I think there's 50 people in the room, including the board and me, right? Are you really meeting your quorum in that case? So I talked to the board about, okay, we have a member engagement priority, and we're kind of meeting it on the engagement side, but the annual meeting's not. They're not actually coming to the meeting. Fortunately for us, we have a theme park really close, Cedar Point. And so I said, well, why don't we instead split these two things out? This is all based in strategic priorities. I'm not just coming up with this stuff. It is a strategic priority for LMRE and North Central to increase member engagement. And as a part of that, to make sure that the annual meeting is effective, right? So these are metrics that I'm supposed to be trying to meet. So I brought to the board the potential of having a member appreciation day, joint member appreciation day, again, to save some money, to bring everybody together at the same time, at Cedar Point. We contact Cedar Point. They're all in for doing that. They have an area to be able to do it. We start hosting member appreciation day. The first year, slight reduction in attendance over our normal member appreciation day when you took the numbers and combined them together from the fairgrounds. Today, we are so many people coming to it after this many years that we literally are thinking about, can we do this on one day now? Or should we have to split it? And the annual meeting's not even a consideration for that anymore, because we realize people weren't coming to that for the annual meeting. They were coming to that for everything else. So let's more effectively give them everything else, and that has been done. It is a cost saver for both cooperatives. It's actually cheaper to go there and do that at Cedar Point, which is crazy, but it is. And at the same time, we're giving the members what they want. Then we take the annual meeting and move it online. Now instead of 50 people, we'll get 600 people that will attend that. This is a huge win. More member engagement at the annual meeting, more member engagement at the Member Appreciation Day, 2 separate events, less employee interaction time because the annual meeting is now just the meeting. It's 45 minutes long, it's virtual, employees are in and out, there's very few of them necessary to do it. Cedar Point handles all the logistics for the Member Appreciation Day. We don't have to deal with food, we don't have to deal with parking cars, we don't have to deal with any of that stuff. We just do some booths and stuff. It's this pretty big win for the employees, for the members, and for the board. And I meet that metric in my evaluation by doing this. So it's just thinking outside the box a little bit to figure out a way to get that goal. But it's done with transparency between me, my staff, and both boards.
Again, input from all sides. I certainly, I think that's a good way to go. I would want that. It is kind of the way I judge it. Ed, when we spoke on the phone, you mentioned that you write up a self-evaluation at the end of the year based on how you think you've done. Tell us about that. What's that like? And then how is that? What role does it play in the evaluation process?
This is what I talked about earlier of that I begin the process with this report back. Take each of the priorities. Now there are 3, we call them foundational priorities. It's just a term I coined to say, hey, these aren't gonna change. That's the safety, reliability, and rates. Foundational priorities, you know, board, we understand these are things co-ops do, they must do. We're not going to spend as much time with those in strategic alignment unless you suddenly tell me safety is no longer a priority, at which point we're only going to spend time on that one because we have a disconnect, right? That doesn't happen, so we know safety, reliability, rates, key foundational priorities. Let's set those aside and get into the other ones. So I have those 3 always. I'm always going to report back on what we're doing in each of those areas on an annual basis. That requires me to put together anywhere from 1 to 2 pages of a report back on that. And so, you know, it takes some time. I'm literally going through and putting aside hours of time in order to report back in a formalized manner progress on all of these things, because I want to give a good report back so the board knows how they're going to be able to say whether they agree or disagree or find things in there that they say, well, you know, we like what you're doing there, but could you maybe alter a little bit here? I do that for every single priority. So I said earlier, 5 to 7, those are not the foundational ones. Foundational ones are always there. The 5 to 7 are additional ones on top of that. So right now we have 5, and for those 5, on Friday and maybe Saturday, I will take time and I will write back that formalized report on each of those different 5 priorities and what progress we have made on them throughout the year. Again, the expectation isn't, oh, we're at this time so everything's done. It's, where are we at? What's going on? Are you guys aware of these activities that have been occurring? And that's what my goal is in there, is to formalize that in a report, that way I can send to the consultant and that can become the foundation of how the evaluation moves forward.
Very good, very good. Let's talk a little, other questions, please. Oh, we see one there. There we go. Give you a moment, get a microphone on you.
So we do, I think we do a quarterly progress report. Our CEO facilitates quarterly progress, and staff quarterly progress report on the strategic plan. How is that quarterly progress report different than what you're just referring to, Ed, on the report that you do to your consultant?
Right. So normally, well, I'd say this process just changed, but we were doing those weekly before, where all staff members would report back what they're doing with regards to all the strategic priorities, and then I would condense that into my report to the board, right? Weekly, that's pretty quick, and that was not very effective because you would find things really didn't change week from week that often. I think quarterly is probably a better occurrence for that. We have now moved that to monthly, and that's one of our things in the board packet. I will say, I'm gonna give a shout out to OEC a little bit here. You know that monthly board report that they do that you can see each staff person. You can click from one to the other and see everything in there. I've actually started modeling ours after that now with that report back, but it does talk about the strategic priorities and how those are aligning. So that is more the interim reporting. This is completely generated first by me as my report on progress annually, and it's part of my annual evaluation. So that's the difference. There are similarities and pieces that come from some of those other reports, especially if there's major projects that are occurring, right? We want to know about those and what's happening with regards to strategic priorities. But they do differ. That's more continuous feedback. This is that formalized, hey, this is going to be your evaluation and what we're going to use to determine how you're doing in your job and what your wages are going to be going forward.
Thanks for the question. Ed, I want to get to compensation, but before we do, I want to talk a little bit more about the appraisal process and how it's communicated to you. Is it a conversation? Do you have an opportunity to respond? Talk about that a little bit.
So the initial communication is I get the report back in a written format, well, written, typed, emailed to me. Nobody writes anything this morning, but yeah. So I get that back to me as a formalized report. It is lengthy, by the way, because think about what I said earlier, 1 to 2 pages, sometimes longer, that I'm sending in. If you have 8 of those, you can see this starts to get to be quite a lengthy document, right? Then after that, the board members' feedback comes back. By the time we're done, sometimes 50 pages, sometimes more, that could be in that report that's sent in every year that I get as feedback. And honestly, if it's that long, I'm 18 board members that need to give feedback in there. I'm looking for that kind of length, because if you only give 3 or 4 comments yourself, but everybody else also gives that too, that's a lot of stuff coming back for me to consider. But I receive it written, and then the facilitator will host a meeting at one or the other cooperative, and we will go through it. Actually, they kicked me out of the room. There's only a couple of board meetings that I am not in. So I always say, if there's something going on at the cooperative that has a meeting with the board and I'm not there, it's because it's about me. That's the only reason. And I think that's really the only valid reason. If it's about me, I should not be there temporarily while they get a chance to speak openly about me. I think that's a very fair way to do it. You may not, and again, that's okay with you, for you, but for us, that works well for me.
Lots of ways to do it.
Right. And so they will have me exit the room briefly, and they will discuss it just amongst themselves. Then they bring me back in, we discuss it together. This is the FESCO board meeting. And then after that, they've kind of determined what their salary recommendation is going to be, and they will discuss that with me as well. And then from there, they go to both boards at the very next board meeting, and they have an executive session where everyone exits and they talk about, with me, the evaluation. It's usually pretty brief, and we're not spending hours in that board meeting because they've had a lot of opportunity to see it and talk about it, in the interim period. And then after that, they will bring everybody back in and we resume normal activities. So that's the process.
Very good. Thanks for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about...
Do you realize how much I talk with my hands? I'm really aware of that right at this moment, just constantly. Yeah. So,
You got to get something to hold, Ed. It takes 2 hands.
Not moving anymore.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about compensation, how it's set, what sources do you pull from? How does that work?
Yeah, I have no idea. No,
It's pulled right out of the sky.
Yeah. So I know the consultant is from the industry, and he is connected to that and understands where that's at. There are salary ranges that are put in place, and each cooperative contributes a percentage of that, again, based upon their total meter count. So I have a total compensation, but North Central is not responsible for the whole thing. LMRE is not responsible for the whole thing. They get their portion of that. I will say one of the things that we can do at the Federation, which I'm actually pretty proud of, is for all employees, we can usually pay slightly above market, but because you split it, each cooperative actually pays lower than market for that same employee. So while our compensation may be slightly higher, because you're sharing across two cooperatives, both those cooperatives are getting a discount, as it were. Now, that doesn't always mean that we are cheaper than every other cooperative. But what it means is we can offer more services than another cooperative. So we can take the same amount of money, and even if we spend a little bit more, we can have services that maybe North Central would not be able to have without this agreement. So we have in-house engineering services, a full-fledged engineering department. When you have a certain size of a cooperative, and the first cooperative I managed in Illinois was very, very small, it was very difficult to be able to afford those types of services. When you share the cost of them, you can do that. It's the same with my evaluation and with my wage consideration. So they're able to offer a little more, but each cooperative itself is actually only paying a part of that, and therefore they are paying a little bit less. So more for less, and that's what we are able to do. Yes, sir.
And how are the different cooperatives able to then assess the effectiveness of, say, you're providing either some kind of accounting services or engineering services? How do they assess whether those are acceptable versus what they could go on the outside?
Right.
Let's get the mic on them, just in case these folks up here in the corner can't hear. Go ahead, if you would repeat it, sir.
Okay, so how do the two different co-ops assess the effectiveness of the services you provide, whether that's engineering or accounting or anything else that they may require, versus what they feel like, well, if we had this service inside, it would be better or it would be worse, or we could go on the outside and get our own consultants, and are these better or worse, and then how is that arrangement actually finalized, and do they have options to say, well, we would really prefer going to this group or doing this ourselves?
Yeah, so I'll give you a really good example so we can kind of think about that. We don't do in-house tree trimming right now. Lots of cooperatives do, right? That has been a service that has been external for a very long time. It wasn't always. It was internal at one point, but at some point in time, the return on investment was not good to have that internalized. It's a continuous evaluation of the services that we offer. And that is something that I'm responsible for doing. We should always be looking to say, okay, is this effective internally or is it not? And what are the goals for that? One of our strategic priorities right now is actually FESCO itself and the services we're going to offer, whether we do it as a subsidiary or other services, whatever we're going to do. At any point in time, should we bring tree trimming back in? Because maybe it's more effective to have it in-house. And honestly, with the cost increases we're seeing, it might be. So it may be time to bring that back in. So we're constantly evaluating that. Now, there is a lot of data out there available to all of us. The key ratio trend analysis from CFC is one of those data points we use. We look at industry trends that are going on at all times. This is something I'm constantly considering. What is effective, what is not? What should we double down on? What should we not be doubling down on? What services are things that the cooperatives really should be able to use more? All of that goes into my evaluation as well. Am I leading the organization in a way that the board agrees is matching the priorities of what we have said we want to do together? What you're talking about is integral to that. There is, okay, so my board doesn't even know this yet. They're about to find out, but I've actually just done a report on that, and I'm going to be including that as part of my evaluation that shows what we've been doing, how effective we've been. And I will tell you, it's not always necessarily the cheapest thing, because it may not be, but the service we can offer is more. How much more do you think your in-house linemen take care of your lines and poles versus all contractors? They own those, right? That's theirs. They live and breathe that every day. An outside contractor probably doesn't. They'll come in and they'll do the line build. They'll make sure everything is where it's supposed to be because contractually they're supposed to. But they go away and someone else maintains it. Your linemen don't. So maybe you could build everything and maintain everything less expensive with only contractors and never have a lineman again. And you can make that choice. But if you do, what are you sacrificing? And that's the decision you have to always be making as you're leading the cooperative through into the future. And that's something we do together with the board.
Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Please don't hesitate. Ed, I want to go back to something we've already talked about, and that's feedback.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hear from directors particularly is that, well, I'm not comfortable giving my CEO feedback. He or she has been here for years. I've only been on the board for a couple of years or even 10 years, but they know so much more. I'm a little bit intimidated by providing feedback to that person. Right. What do you say to that? What do you say to those directors with that thought?
So it's kind of a natural thing, right? I mean, we're, as employees of the cooperative, we're there every single day, right? We're engaged in this material every day. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's a never-ending job because everybody wants the lights on 24/7. So you, as a CEO, you don't really ever quite go home. You're always still thinking and always still part of what's going on. So it's a fair thing to say that the knowledge level of someone internally is probably going to be a little bit higher than maybe someone externally. But everyone brings a different set of experiences and skill sets to the table. And you are valuable. And in fact, you are in the membership more than me. Quite often, especially when you get into larger organizations, you know your district better than I ever will because you live in your district. And so for me to not take seriously what you're bringing to the table is a mistake, and I never will. I will tell you that extends to my leadership style as well. I believe in the whole management by walking around principle. So I get up out of my desk, and I can tell you a lot of my peers share this because I talk to them about it. And we go walking to each individual throughout the cooperative, and I'm seeking feedback from them. I will spend time with the interns and just ask them, how's it going? What's happening? Sometimes I'm asking them about their daily life just to get them talking. But then after that, I want to know what their perspective is on what we're doing at the cooperative and how they think maybe we could do something a little different or a little bit better. And sometimes their ideas come forth, and that becomes the framework for what we're going to do next. That literally has happened. The same thing occurs at all levels. It doesn't matter if you are the cleaning crew, if you're a lineman, if you're in accounting, if you're in member services, if you're one of the key accounts people, or if you're me or on the board, we're all on the same team. And we need to advocate for a one-team approach. So if you have a question and you're not asking it, that's not doing you any good, and it's not doing me any good. It also could mean maybe you don't have a piece of the picture and you didn't ask the question, so I can't give you that piece of the picture. Or maybe you asked the question and no one had thought of that before. So I want to know that question so that we can jointly move forward together. It's really important to have open, transparent communication. And I try to live that, and I really want that back from my boards.
CEOs are sincere about that. They do want that feedback. Not all of us are built that way. It's like, oh, if you've got something to share and give some feedback to me, keep it to yourself. I mean, but CEOs want that. They again, are trying to always improve. And I can't emphasize enough how critical that is, particularly in this era of transition now where we're going to see a lot of new CEOs coming into the program. Mm-hmm. They need and want that feedback.
I just heard a statistic when I was at this. Tom Music and I went to a Harvard training just the other day. I don't know Harvard, but that aside, it was a CFC-led program, and they did a really good job with the material. And they talked in there about trust architecture, and they talked also about the imposter syndrome, right? And they said more than 80% of CEOs experience imposter syndrome. And that means that you're in that role, but you don't necessarily have confidence in yourself. 80%, and this is across all industries. So if you think about that, how do you resolve that? It's through developing a trust architecture through open transparency. Because we want to make sure the cooperative succeeds. That's how we succeed. And to do that requires that two-way communication. So I'd really encourage you to try to do that. Again, this is what's worked for me, so you can take it with that, but I think it would work for you as well.
I agree. And as far as, I know some directors, again, going back to that hesitancy about giving feedback to the CEO, you've really got to stop and think about the fact that you've run a farm, you've run a small business, you've been a banker, a school teacher, whatever it might be in the community for all of these years. You have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. Further, you've been singled out by your fellow members, friends and neighbors to represent them. That doesn't just happen by mistake or by magic. It's you've been selected and identified. You've got what it takes to bring to that table to oversee this, in each case, really a multi-million-dollar corporation, and to provide that unique perspective to your CEO. Because as Ed says, you're out there among the membership each and every day, probably a lot more than you get a chance to, I would guess. So,
yeah, like I said, the larger the organization, the more likely that's true. I have 2 distinct territories, and I try to make it to as many things as possible, and in fact, that's one of my goals always. But there's only so many hours in the day and so much time you can spend behind the windshield. So it has to be a team effort. It does.
Ed, could you take a moment just to talk about how your compensation is structured? Is it base, incentive, performance? How does that look?
So I have a standard salary, and again, that's shared in that sort of algorithmic approach that I talked about earlier based upon meters. So that could vary even month to month depending on meter sizes and what's going on there. But that is based as like just the salary. And then on top of that, I have a separate arrangement that is every couple of years there's a certain amount that's going into an account, and I will every couple of years be able to get that back out. But I have to be there on that date in order to do it. So I don't know what they call those now. That's golden handcuffs. But that's something we've agreed upon, and I think is very appropriate. It's an incentive to make sure I'm meeting my expectations, and also that I will be there, not just today, but in the future.
Very good. So Ed, particularly to new directors, can you give a couple of pieces of advice and really encouragement to those new folks about how important feedback is to you and how they can really help you to do your job better?
So with new directors in particular, what I have found over the years is that sometimes your feedback is you looking for more information, and that's great. That means that you're coming into an organization, and sometimes you may have a perspective on something that you just really didn't quite get from outside, right? It's really hard sometimes to know actually what's really happening in the cooperative until you're on the board, right? But you have to run, you have to get on the board, and maybe there's even a platform. If you are asking those questions as part of the evaluation or feedback to me, that gives me the opportunity to help give you the information so that you can help make better decisions going forward. I tell the board, I'm your highest paid advisor, right? So when you ask me for information, it's my job to give it to you. Sometimes you'll like the information, sometimes you won't. But I always try to give it to you, and I give you data with which to make good decisions, and I give you what I think is the best decision going forward, and then together we have to agree upon it. So when you're coming in as a new director, if you just are sitting there and not participating, you're probably not getting the information you personally need. So I would like for you to give that feedback so that way I can give you the information you need so that we can jointly make good decisions for how the cooperative's going to run.
Other questions? Anybody? Last chance. Ed, what closing thoughts do you have for us on this topic of appraisal and comp?
I think the most important thing is that you have something. There should be some kind of framework, and it's going to vary. Don't get me wrong. Every cooperative is going to be slightly different. Brian Singletary always told me, if you've seen one cooperative, you've seen one cooperative, and he may have stolen that from someone else. I don't know.
Probably Auburn guys do that.
Yeah,
You can't trust them.
Yeah.
You can't trust them. You know Singletary.
But I absolutely believe that. But the key thing here is you should have something in place. And as a part of that, you should have an open communication with your CEO so that way they know what you're thinking and you can know what they're thinking and you can make good decisions going forward. Whatever that looks like, just make sure there's a framework in place to do it.
Fair enough. Ed, thanks for joining me on stage. I appreciate it. And thank you for your questions. Hope it was beneficial for you.
Thank you, guys.